let us know like what years did you attend Bethel?
I was I got to Bethel. It was either April or May of '98, and I left in August of '99.
Okay.
So it was all about a little over a year I was there.
Okay. When your parents when you guys pulled up to Bethel, and I remember the same thing. You go down that dirt road. I actually went back there about a year ago, and walking down that dirt road was one of the craziest things. I mean, all these memories are just flying back through my head. But once they pulled up in front of Brother Fountain's house, what happened then? Did Fountain come out, or sort of just let me know what happened once you pulled up, once you
He
guys got
he
there?
his wife answered the door. His wife answered the door, and I remember her very distinctly. And she answered the door, and a couple of his kids were there to. Josh was on the front porch, and Brother Fountain then came out and talked to my parents, and he had Josh and Nate Dunn walk me down to the barracks and to show me around there. And I'll never forget it because when we walked in, Nolan Durham actually kind of like instantly got like in my face and was kind of rough right away. And I took a swing at him. And that was probably the dumbest thing I ever did. But, because I was young. But, no, like that's my first memories. I mean, there was just it was instantly from one thing. By the time, like, they never took me back to say goodbye to my parents. My parents left.
So they just walked you down on the door and they took off. How old were you?
I was 14. I was 16 when I left. I turned 15 in July of '98. Turned 16 right before I left.
Yeah, that's pretty young. It's pretty young. Um, so yeah, so your parents just dropped you off there, took you to the dorm, and then they left. Um, so what was it like your first kind of day or that first impression when all of a sudden you were just like introduced to it? What was it like? What did you think?
It was night and day. I mean, I had been in juvie, like I said, at 12, and that's a bunch of rough kids. And, I really wasn't there for breaking any major laws. It was, I had gotten in a little bit of trouble in a dispute with my parents and, some dumb stuff, but I had never been in a situation where it was, instant, like it was instant chaos. And I was a bigger guy. I mean, I'm still a big guy, but I was a fat body. So right away, you know, it was nuts. You know what I mean? Like I was now when I first got there, not wasn't there, so it wasn't as much military base for the first month or two, but it was still very harsh reality. You know what I'm saying? Of you know instantly, you got a wake up time, you got a breakfast time, you got a PT time. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot more regimented than it was anywhere I had been in my life before.
Yeah. Yeah, and so um just I guess just tell me a little bit about like the daily life there, just so anybody that's watching just kind of what was Bethel like, and then tell me. I know you mentioned Knott wasn't there when you were there, and then he came. I guess tell me sort of about who Knott was when he got there. But I mean, what was Bethel like? What did they make you do?
I,
What was it like for a 14-year-old?
I mean, for the first, I mean, right after I got there is when Knott got there. Shortly thereafter, I mean, within a month, I would say. But it was hell. I mean, I don't know how to explain it other than hell. You woke up. I mean, I to this day cannot stand neon lights. If neon lights come on, I literally cringe. Um, you know, I, the waking up, running 7 miles, 6 miles, and then stopping in that parking lot afterwards to cool down, I guess. But we run sprints and everything else, and singing cadences, and then it was just constant physical stress, constant mental stress, and then you'd get back, you'd eat breakfast if you were lucky enough to, and I can remember many times getting rolled down the road there to the chow hall. I got duck walked to the chow hall. I got, I would, many times getting PT'd all the way to the chow hall, and then being told, "No, we got to leave." You don't need the food anyways because I was a bigger guy. So, you know, within the first 6 months, I lost I was probably 220 when I went in there, 5'8" and 220. I was a big 14-year-old. When I left, I was 155 pounds. So, I mean, within the first 6 months, I probably lost 40 pounds.
You were at Bethel you're at Bethel over a year. So I know when I was at Bethel, they had like a progression system.
Well, they had rank when I was there. Drill instructor not did the rank thing. And I got PFC probably about, I'd say 4 or 5 months after I got there. And I was a squad leader, which he would have us broken down into 4 squads when we marched, whatever. I was a squad leader. Then I would say it was either April or May of 99. So about the 1 year mark of me being there, my parents had come down. I guess I earned enough trust that they came down to go on a vacation with me. And while we were on that vacation, I had explained to them, listen, this place is not what you think it is. And my dad was, like I said, old school. He was born in the 40s. And he was like, yeah, you just don't want to deal with discipline. But my mom was a doctor, and she was more in tune to what I was saying. And they had left me there. And right after they left, from that vacation, a lot of times when they would call, my mom would try and say stuff, and I didn't really get into that, but all the calls were always like somebody was sitting there with you, or at least close by, or the phone would be outside of the hut there, drill instructor Knott's house, his little room there. But they started. She would be like, "Are you okay?" and whatever. And I couldn't really say anything, and I think that's what made her realize that it wasn't a lie, that what I was saying was true. About a month after they had left, I got Lance Corporal. I'll never forget that. I mean, even with PFC, I walked the line. They would line the cadets up on either side, and you would cross your arms, and you would walk down it. And they would dead leg you, which is kneeing you in the side of your leg, and beat you the whole way down. If you fell, you had to get back up and start over. When I got to the end, drill instructor not actually, I went bare chested, and he took the chevrons, took the palm of his hand, and pinned it onto my chest.
So you're saying when you got promoted, they basically form a line and you had to go through the line where everybody beat you. And that was your way of getting promoted. And then what would he stick to you? What you said?
Well, okay. When we got promoted, we actually got promoted in the chapel. He would have us stand up. He would call us up to the podium there, and he would, you got rank. He would give you your rank, whatever, Brother Fountainwood. But when we got back to the barracks that evening after church, drill instructor not had anybody who got rank, who had gotten promoted or gotten rank, to take their shirt off, and you would walk down the line. They would have everybody on both sides of the squad bay line up, and I mean pretty tight in. I mean, and you would walk down it, and they would beat the ever living crap out of you the whole way down the line. And then your chevrons, which are like your collar, your lapel pins that signify what rank you are. Like a Lance Corporal, it's 2 stripes. For a PFC, it's 1 stripe. They actually have pins. They're like an actual pin. And he pinned it to my chest. And he did it to numerous other people. I remember when Preston got his sergeant stripes. I remember when, a lot of guys that got rank, they got pinned. And a lot of them probably don't want to talk about that. But to me, I actually was proud of that because, hey, I earned it. You know what I mean? That was a lot of hell I went through to get them stripes. So, I mean, I remember one guy, Paolillo, jumping off a balcony. He tried to kill himself. He swan dived off the balcony running out the barracks. Like, there's just so many things I can tell you that like that. It was just nonstop. I mean, every day, PT and, getting worn out. Not was just mean. He was just ornery. I mean, I don't think there was a compassionate bone in his body.
Yeah.
I don't think there was.
So why do you think he did that? What do you think the purpose that they treated the boys like that? What was the goal?
I think, and I've thought about this a lot, and I've talked to some of the other guys that were there, and I think originally, and I'm not one to talk ill on anyone, but I think originally Brother Fountain probably started that home out to be something good. He probably started it out for the right reasons, but I mean, I think the greed and the money got in his way. I mean, literally, I know personally, my parents were paying large sums of money to have me in there every month.
Yeah, and there was a lot of kids in there too.
Yeah, when I was there at any given time, there was 40 to 60 kids in there at any given time, and that's not counting the girls across the bridge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I probably think that the same way. I bet you he did start. I mean, he'd been doing it a long time. I bet he did start with good intentions, but eventually you get that money. And in a way, he was getting power too. I mean, he had power over all of us
Yeah,
boys.
the
He had
power
power over the people in the town. I mean, everybody looked up to him like he was doing this
Yep,
great thing. You know, he was a
for
preacher, and
sure.
yeah. So that's
Absolutely.
yeah, that's crazy. Um, so just tell me some stories. I mean, some of the things that you remember when you were there, some of the stuff that you saw or that happened to you, or just some of the things that maybe stand out.
Yeah, Joe Paolillo, he um unfortunately that place really messed him up good. When I left, he left with me. And when I mean he left with me, I mean we drove him to his parents' house because they lived in Connecticut. He was 18. So he actually rode with us when we left. But he had swan dived off of the he came running out the barracks and literally launched himself, if you remember the steps. It wasn't like a real big platform, but he just launched himself over that railing and hit the ground, busted his arm and shoulder all up. I remember Moody, John Moody I remember him real well. He was there with me almost the entire time I was there. He I know Polo got sick on him a lot. He was picked on real bad. I mean, real bad because he was very, if you know him now, he's not quiet. But then he was one of the quietest people I had ever met. He was almost like a little mouse. He was very quiet, very small, very mellow, and they really messed with him a lot. Like they took even some of the small guys like Noel and Sammy Wilburn and Luke Corbett and some of the smaller guys, the young kids. He got there after they had already been there for a long time. So they were like a clique, you know what I'm saying? Like they stuck together.
Yeah.
But he was kind of like an outsider. So it was rough on him. Um I mean, Nate Dunn, I can tell you stories about him. He A lot of guys didn't like him. Me personally, I can honestly say he was one of the lights in that darkness. For some reason, I don't know why, maybe the good Lord was looking out for me or something. But when he would be told to be mean to me, he wouldn't be. He was very kind to me and very understanding and would actually come sit me down. Like I remember polishing boots. I couldn't polish a boot to save my soul. He was the one who came over and showed me how to pack the the black shoe polishing and use a lighter and get it so it was to where it was like glass, you know what I mean? But he sat down with me. And Baptista, he was also one of the ones that was very good to me. The Tyne brothers, John and Jeff Tyne. I mean, I can name off. That's the one bad thing or good thing about being in that place. I didn't forget any of it. I mean, I remember every one of them guys like it was yesterday.
Yeah,
There's
that
so
was
much
weird.
stuff. I mean,
Yeah, for me too, it's like it's almost like we were kind of a band of brothers. Like it was so bad, we kind of had to
absolutely,
rely on each other. I mean, because I know if I didn't have some of the guys in there with me, I probably
absolutely.
wouldn't have made it either. It was kind of those tough times you help each other through. And
Yep,
unfortunately, there were some kids there. Like when I was there, Bradley, man, everybody would pick on Bradley a lot. But there were some kids there that just I don't know, man. They had their number, and whether it was Nod or Fountain, he wouldn't shy against people just being assholes to him. I don't understand why they would do that.
yeah. Well, I know, like, prime example. I've heard a lot of people that were there say, you know, some pretty good things about like Josh or John Fountain. Me personally, I think Josh Fountain was as mean as drill instructor not, if not meaner at times. But honestly, I know why. Because there were many times he would get stuck in the barracks with us if he ticked his dad off. I remember watching his dad whoop on him and punch him in the face. So, like, he had a mean streak, but that's because he was Brother Fountain's kid. You know what I mean? So I don't hold that against him, but like, there was lots. I mean, that place wasn't good for anybody, but there were a lot of guys that stuck together and helped each other through. And I'll tell you what, just in the last few, weeks to month here that I've been talking to a few of the guys, it's like we never stopped talking. You know what I mean? It's like time stood still. There's nothing different about the camaraderie we have because of the hell we went through.
Yeah, it's not. I've been lucky enough to meet up with a bunch of the guys. It's just like what you said. It's like me and you. If we met up now, we could sit down. If we were on camera right here, we'd BS for 6, 7 hours and just. I mean, that's a great way you put it.
Absolutely.
It's like time stood still, and it was so weird for me when I left.
Absolutely.
I had this list of everybody's names, and I was like, I'm going to call all you guys when I get out. And for some reason, when I got out, I couldn't pick the phone up to call them. I just wanted to get rid of that place, put it behind me. So it's been really good for me. And I know a lot of the guys be able to reconnect and us to, connect again. It's crazy. It's like this part of me that was, I don't know, missing or I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, because I had a list in the back of my Bible, and a lot of guys put their names and address. In fact, I can still remember that address plain as day of John and Jeff Tyne. They lived on Whitegate Drive in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't remember the number, but to this day, I mean, I'll never forget when they wrote their names in my Bible. Before I even left, they had wrote them in there and their addresses. And I did stay in touch for a few years after I got out with one guy that I was close with in there, Greg Corbett, in Virginia Beach there, because he was close to me, closer. Was about 4.5, 5 hours away, but it was still relatively close. But a lot of the guys I never heard anything else about until recently. I didn't connect with them, like you said. It was like I wanted to, but it was so much trauma that it was like I didn't want to open that can of worms again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So why do you think that all of us have that kind of bond?
Well, I can put it to you like this. After I got out of Bethel, I got into a lot of bad stuff. But just like in a motorcycle club or like in a military organization or in the military, when you've been through hell, when you have walked through stuff that people can't even fathom, people can't wrap their minds around. And when it's not just you who's gone through it, but other guys with you, there is a bond there where to this day, I don't trust people. But I'm telling you right now, if you called me and said, hey, can I come stay with you for a month? I would let you without questions asked. Why? Because I know where you've walked, I know where you've been. And there's that kind of silent understanding that we've all been through that same ringer. So we know what to expect out of each other, for good or bad.
What would you say that you got from
Absolutely.
Bethel? Good, bad, whatever. What did you get out of that whole experience? And I know, like, my parents sent me there to make me this great kid to respect authority and I saw in your pictures you sent me, you have one of the flyers. I got one of those exact same flyers. It's got Micah on it, having his picture. I'm actually in on the front with all the boys marching. I'm in that picture. And what Fountain sold my parents was not what they got. So what would you say you got out of that
Absolutely.
whole experience?
Well, I can tell you this. There was never a harder point. I had a daughter pass away in 2007. Honestly, if it wasn't for the hardness that Bethel created in us, I would have cracked. And I would have cracked worse than I did crack. Bethel created hard individuals. We are tough. Like the Bible says, as iron sharpeneth iron, and gold, like it created a hard individual. We're tough. We're resilient. You can knock us back down, but we're not going to just lay there and take it. We're going to get back up. So the good part about it, I learned that I can get through anything. I learned that no matter what, there's a way to accomplish something without giving up. The good out of it, that's probably the best thing. I mean, the food was good, and I'm a fat
Yeah.
guy, so the food was good there. I'll give them that. The food was awesome.
So what was the bad that you got out?
It made me. I already had anger issues a little bit because of like some of the stuff that happened when I was younger, and people not believing me, and having the Bible shoved down my throat in a sense. Not that I'm against that, but to the degree it was as a younger kid. When I got to Bethel, it increased my hatred of people to a degree I never even could imagine. It also caused me to have doubts in God. And that's because if God loved us, then why would he have allowed us to go through and people who claim to be Christians do to us what they did? Now, since then, I've come to terms with that. But the bad was it created a monster because I went from being a slightly disrespectful, slightly, maybe a little more rebellious than normal, but not, I wouldn't say much more. I mean, I have a lot of teenagers of my own, and, I don't think I was any more rebellious than any other teenager, but it created a guy who, when I got out, within a year and a half of me getting out, I did almost 5 years in prison. I got involved in gangs. I was a heavy, heavy IV drug user. I was involved in organized crime. I hurt a lot of people. My job in those groups and things were to hurt people. I mean, I was mean. I was downright mean. And it created that because I couldn't trust people. And I couldn't turn to people for help because I didn't trust people. So that's the bad.
Tell me about just if you want to share whatever you want to share, just tell me about your life after you got out to Bethel, kind of to this day. Because I've talked to you a bunch and I know that I mean you seem like you've gone through a lot of crap, but you have just great spirits, which is, great to see with some people. So just tell me a little bit about your life after Bethel, sort of what happened and who you are today.
Well, life after Bethel, like I said, when I got home, I was 16. Within a few months after that, I was out on my own. In and out of jail. I got involved very young with a motorcycle club. I was involved in organized crime. I got involved in some pretty heavy stuff. I was in and out of prison. I've done approximately a little over 10 years behind bars. Um, I really, I lived really rough. I mean, I did a lot of bad things. I did a lot of dirt, and it really brought me to my knees. I had a daughter pass away. I have a bunch of kids, and they're great kids. They're all teenagers, and but I've gone through 2 divorces. I lived really rough, and I was a really mean, ornery guy, and because of all of that, I had lost sight on what the big picture was, and a few years ago, like I said, my adopted parents, even though we didn't see eye to eye, and even though they didn't understand me really, and I didn't so much understand what they wanted when I was younger, as I got a little bit older and was completely locked into drug addiction and violence and a really bad life, I started seeing those things that they had said when I was younger, how it was true. Like if I would have done certain things differently, I wouldn't be paying the piper now. So a few years ago, I started reaching out for help as far as getting sober and things like that. And it took a lot of hard places to get me to that point. But when my mom passed away 2 years ago, it'll be 2 years, December 10th. She it was the last time I ever used drugs. I mean, I the day of her burial, I put the needle down and I promised her there at her casket that look, I'm done. And I've grown up, and it's hasn't been easy, and it'll never be easy. But honestly, the very thing that I despised and hated about Bethel and despised and hated about the people there, which was shoving God down my throat, is the very thing that kept me alive. And I can, if it wasn't for God, and I know a lot of guys might not agree with me, some might, but I can tell you this: if it wasn't for God and having a faith in God throughout my entire life, even when I didn't really realize that I had a faith in God, I would catch myself even at Bethel, quoting Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Romans 8:28. All things work together for good to them that love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. I would quote those, Psalm 91. I would quote those even while at Bethel going through hell. I would quote those, and I guess it was my faith that I didn't even really know I had, that throughout these last few years of my life have kept me going. And the toughness that I learned in Bethel has actually been a good tool that I've learned to use to help not only myself, but others. And because of it, I have reached out and helped quite a few drug addicts. And I have a couple people that live on my property that are down and out, and I've worked with them. And my whole goal in life now is to help anybody. One thing that I can say here will keep a parent from sending their kid away, or keep a person from committing suicide, because look, their life isn't the only one that's been shit. You know what I'm saying? If we can work together to bring out that pain is nothing more than weakness leaving the body, in a sense. We have to learn that pain is okay. Not always going to be all right. But as long as we can open up and tell people, and we can help and share with others, we can do a lot of good. You know what I mean? And our pain will have been worth it.
I agree completely. That's awesome. Yeah, you don't know what you've gone through, what I've gone through, what you've gone through, what everybody's gone through. I truly believe there's a purpose and a reason behind it. I truly believe we wouldn't go through these things without there being a purpose. And I think once that's what's got me through it, the same thing. The exact same thing, man. I mean, God's got me through it. And you don't know. I mean, you never know. Somebody may watch this. Like I told you earlier, I just had my best friend's brother, who I was really close with, 2 days ago, passed away from a drug overdose. And in some cases, I honestly think people overdose on purpose because they just can't take it anymore. And you never know. Somebody may watch something like what you just said and say, you know what? I need to put down the needle, or I need to make a better decision, or I need to better myself because I have a purpose. And then really everything that we went through doesn't make it right, doesn't make it better, but it makes it, in my mind, it makes it, I won't even say worth it. I don't even know. I can't put it into words, but
For me, it is worth it, because if one person can see that, no matter how bad our life has been, yours, mine, Moody's, any of the guys from Bethel, no matter how bad our life has been, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We all don't have to give up. Nobody has to give up. You can succeed. You can become something. You can become somebody who has a positive outlook. Is every day perfect? No. Are there days I don't want to get out of bed and be around people? Absolutely. Are there days where I get things that hit me, and, things flash back and cause me to have, a real tough day? Absolutely. But those are the days where I reflect back and go, this is definitely not the worst day I've ever had. The days in the pond at Bethel, the days, places that, we've been that have been far worse. I can look and say now, you know what? There's no reason for me to be down. I have a reason to keep going. And when I look at my kids, I have beautiful kids. I got 3 daughters. I have 2 stepsons. I have a couple adopted kids. And you know what? Granted, all of them have watched me go through drug addiction. They've watched me in and out of prison. They've watched me suffer immensely. However, is that good for them to have seen? No. But they have turned down drugs. They're all teenagers. They've turned down drugs. They've turned down opportunities to do things, all because they said, no, I watched my dad go through that. I watched my dad suffer, and I ain't going down that path. And that right there makes every bit of pain I've ever had worth it.
No, I appreciate you talking with me, Dan. It's been awesome, dude. I appreciate it. You got a great story.